Hello, my name is Bruce. I've been asked by Pastor Jonathan of our church to speak about a particular subject, and I will apologise in a little bit in advance because I am from New Zealand and my accent hopefully you can understand, so I will try and speak a little bit slower for those that English is perhaps a second language. I understand that because I'm trying to learn German and that just confuses me like crazy, but we live and learn. But the pastor often asks me to teach in our home groups, which I always say yes, and then I figure out what we're going to do thereafter. But last week I was speaking out of Isaiah, and we were talking about the presence of God, and I took a bit of a left leap of faith in another part of our conversation, which got Pastor Jonathan's attention. And it was actually an extract from a YouTube clip that I watched some while ago by another pastor called Pastor Ravi Zechariah, and he's an apologetics and speaks all around the world, and I was very impressed about what he said. And what he was saying, that any faith that you hold and anybody else holds should be able to answer 4 questions. And I thought, okay, that's very interesting for me. What are the 4 questions? And if you want to follow this up later, you can go and find Ravi Zechariah on YouTube. But the 4 questions were that you should be able to answer for yourself. The first one is our origin, i.e. where do we come from? So, okay, as Christians, we can answer that question very definitively, what our origin is. The next question he posed was what our purpose was, or our meaning. And I always link those together, so it's understanding what our purpose and meaning is of this life, and what are we doing here, and why are we here. I guess for me, I can simply ask those to answer that question. Even if we look at the 10 Commandments, like just the first 2, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul and spirit, and everything about you. And the second, love others as you would love yourself. And I guess the key word of that is love. So if we want to understand our purpose, I guess we need to look at, like in Corinthians 13, chapter 13, the concept of faith, hope and love being the ultimate. So when we want to understand our purpose, know definitively what that is for yourself. The third question, which is probably one of the most interesting for me, was about morality. I thought, interesting question to ask, or interesting question to pose. And you know, I've been having discussions with some people that don't believe in God and talking about morality, and I always link that to values and principles, because for me these are our guiding lights of how we live our life. And God, through the Old Testament and through the New Testament, definitively sets out values and principles or morality of how we should live. And very interesting, because it helps us determine what is the best way to live, and how God wants us to live, and how He empowers us to live according to morality. And yes, very interesting, as I said, for me. And perhaps something food for thought for yourselves. I think what your values and principles are based on, and if someone asked you what they were, could you definitively state, well, these are the values and principles that I live my life by? And the last question is destiny. And we know where we're going. We know we're here, but we know we're not designed to stay here, and we know what our ultimate home is going to be, which is heaven. So all of those 4 questions we can definitively answer, which for me gives faith, reassurance and hope. And that's why I believe in God, and have done for over 30 years. So answering those questions gives you stability and strength. And on a side note, I like speaking to people, and one of my best friends just died recently, and I've been trying to speak to him for many years to have a faith in God. And his last 3 or 4 months, I increased that consistency with him, but still he refused and resisted. And from what I understand, he died without having a belief in God. But what was, I guess, 2 or 3 things that were very sad for me in that whole event is I don't believe he knew God. He was very afraid of death and dying. And I tried to speak to him about the reassurance and the love that God has for him and a better place to be, but still that resistance. So as hard as it is, we can only trust God to help us help others, and they have to make a decision for themselves. And it's the same thing pointing to these questions, because I asked him these questions and talked to him about these questions, and particularly the last one, his destiny. But at the end of the day, it's in everybody's hands to choose and decide, and that is our freedom of choice. There is one other part that Ravi Zachariah does talk, which is a lead on to those 4 questions, which was a test for truth. And I wrote this down because I haven't really got this through my head totally yet, and I want to do some more study on this. The 3 tests were, one was logical consistency, the second was empirical adequacy, and third is experiential relevance. Now that sounds very confusing and blah blah blah, so perhaps if you're interested in those 3 tests for truth, go and investigate them for yourself, because I think they are platforms for determining what really is truth under those guidelines if you want to do apologetics. So once again, my name is Bruce, and it's been nice talking to you, and regards and blessings from Winning Faith Ministries here in Zurich.